recording. So good day, morning, evening, wherever you are in the world. Thank you for joining me today. We're going to talk about a group of plants that are game changers, and that I personally think in this category of plants, every single one of us should have at least one close friend of a nervine. Plants that essentially calm and soothe our nervous systems, because I don't really have to tell any of you that the world is crazy. It just seems to get more intense, this journey that we're on every day. And at least for me, having a couple of friends in the plant world that literally their superpowers are to reset, soothe, and physically calm my dysregulated and overwhelmed nervous system. I don't want to live in a world where I don't have access to these beings that support us in this way. In some ways, when I started really unraveling the degree to which my nervous system was shot when I started plant medicine work, it kind of occurred to me that dysregulated nervous systems are a pandemic in and of themselves in our world, because we are overstressed and we are overworked and stimulated. We do not really value the process of healing trauma, certainly not in the clinical medical world. Allopathic medicine is about, attacking diseases, not about resetting nervous systems. So, maybe some of you relate to this. When I first started working with ayahuasca, she would reflect to me on the regular of like, your nervous system is shot. You are so sensitive. I didn't even know. I would often argue with her, like, I don't think it's that big of a deal. I'm okay. Because I think a lot of us, what we do is we normalize the experience of a dysregulated nervous system. We get so used to being edgy, anxious, in this sort of heightened state, that we don't even really know what or remember what it feels like to be calm, to be in a body that is not on high alert, that is not in some form of fight or flight. I didn't know what that felt like when I first started working with plant medicines. And the trick of it is too, for those of us on the path of working with medicines like ayahuasca, they can actually make a dysregulated nervous system worse, because they're intense, these portals of altered spaces. They can expose, ayahuasca absolutely helped me be in more awareness of what my body was going through, but she sure as hell didn't calm things. Doing shadow work, going to the recesses of my psyche and like having those intense journeys. What she did though is wake me up to it and then hold me accountable for doing something about it, which involved, in part, making friends with a couple of nervines. So, plant medicines aren't necessarily the solution to healing our nervous systems. They can be partners, plant medicines, meaning the entheogens, like ayahuasca, magic mushrooms, etc. They can be partners in helping us to become more aware of the traumas that we're carrying and processing them. But no amount of insight, intellectual understanding heals the nervous system. This has to be done on a deeply experiential level. And because, especially medicines like iboga, ayahuasca to a certain degree, they can have a stimulant effect on our bodies. That's sort of the opposite of what a nervine does, what something that is more attuned to regulating and healing the nervous system. So don't make the mistake that I did of thinking, well, I drink ayahuasca a lot, she's going to help with this. Like, no, she exposes these things. She does help with the traumas, but it's up to us to have just a deeper sense of responsibility of healing our own bodies. So who are the nervines, right? Let's talk about the actual specific plants, at least some of them. The good news is there's a lot of them. This category of plants is quite diverse, because we're going to go through a lot of them that exist in nature. And although quite often they're sort of classified as the just sort of lump generalization of these are nervines, they each have their own sort of specific superpowers, and unique ways of working with us. And I'll kind of go through at least some of the ones that I know well. But, before I go through the list, I want to say something. I say a lot to groups like this that, I think fundamentally one of the reasons why our nervous systems are completely out of whack is that most of us have grown up in a world where we're very disconnected from nature as a whole. So, in a kind of sweet, general way, connecting with any plant is in part a way to help come back to a space of nervous system regulation, because it's cultivating a conscious relationship again with nature, and we are nature. And so this separation that most of us have experienced from our homes and our bodies and the maternal energy of the planet that we are born from, that is ridiculously painful. And so any effort that we make to reconnect with nature at any level is in some ways good for our bodies and our nervous systems, because I define safety as a space when I'm connected to my body and to the earth. Because this is just happens to be, we all chose to be here on Earth School. So any amount of trying to disconnect and dissociate, it may feel safe to the mind, but it definitely doesn't feel safe to the body. And there's the rub that we navigate as individuals, is that our minds often take control, and our minds only feel safe when they're in the definition of what the mind feels is controlling, which is often a very mental, disassociated space. The truth of it is, the space where the body relaxes and experiences safety is the opposite of that. It's deeply connected to the earth. It's deeply in a space of trust, of surrender and letting go. The opposite of the mind's idea of I must control everything in order to be safe, which we all know is an illusion anyway. The mind never controls anything. It just thinks it does. So the plants that are most impactful to help us on this level of nervous system regulation are plants that all in some way involve a relationship with trust, with letting go, with these things that are very counterintuitive to the mind. So they are challenging for a lot of us, because if we don't have a conscious understanding or a memory of what it feels like to be calm and regulated, when we have the experience with a nervine, our minds might tell us something's wrong. Now, I can't tell you how many times I've worked with people in ayahuasca where their intention is around something like, I want to feel peaceful and grounded and present. And then they get that experience and they come out of it going, I don't think the medicine worked. I didn't feel anything. Like, well, what did you feel? Calm and peaceful. Well, what were your intentions? Oh, yeah, calm and peaceful. It's so unfamiliar. And our minds, when they go into a space of something that isn't familiar, even if it's heavenly, like feeling completely free and present, they'll write the story that something is wrong because it's not a space that the mind feels safe, because it's unfamiliar. So I went through this. The first master plant diet I did with a nervine was lavender, and I did it in an isolated setting. So my only job was to diet lavender. Oh my God, my mind freaked out. Like Britney Spears was playing on repeat. Like my mind, the longer I went into this diet, it was a 2-week silent experience working with ayahuasca, working with lavender. But really, my main job all day was to get up and watch the sun progress across the horizon. That's it. And my mind completely freaked out and went through a days long process of pitching a fit, because that space that lavender was creating, and she created it in a very, it's a weird thing to say, but she created it in a way that felt physically assaulting. Lavender took me and pinned me down to the ground and gave me absolutely no choice but to be present. Like I would fight with her mentally, energetically, and she was stronger. But it's weird to say that a plant that's all about serenity physically assaulted me, but she did, because she was not going to allow the dysregulation to take over. That's how powerful she is in her serenity. But I mentioned this because on paper, it sounds amazing, right? Of like, yeah, I want to work with plants that calm me and like I want to be present and soothed. But if it's not a state that you have a familiarity with, it can feel really intensely scary and difficult. It's why a lot of us have a hard time meditating. We're so used to being overstimulated that when we attempt to go into a space where we empty our thoughts or we're just in a place of presence, we can feel a lot of resistance and fight. I still do. I mean, Lavender taught me to meditate, but I still have the racing mind that's like, must think about things, must do things, because being present, being still is also, of course, being deeply connected with our emotions and just being with what is, which is the one thing that the mind tries to avoid. So this is complicated, isn't it, for us in the modern world? Like, of course, we want these experiences of serenity and peacefulness until we have it. And then often we're like, oh, no, this is something's wrong with this. We have to formulate a relationship with that space. And that is why, I emphasize the nervines I'm about to list is like, it's wonderful if we have one or two that we really cultivate a deep relationship with, because just sitting with lavender tea once or twice a week sort of in an unconscious space is not going to do much, no matter how powerful these plants are, unless we meet them in the middle and say, hi, I would love your help, I would love to learn about you. They can't force their way in. They can do little tweaks, little uplifts here and there, but they can't expose the full extent of their superpowers unless we consciously let them in. So, okay, favorite nervines, long and wonderful list. I mentioned, of course, lavender. I look at lavender like in the space of nervous system regulation. Lavender really holds a domain of presence. She's an incredible plant for calming us in a way that helps us feel just totally aware of our bodies, the world. And it's interesting, right, that in the Western culture, lavender has found her way into every conceivable bath product, cleaning product, like you name it, lavender's in there. You ever wonder why? Because we fucking need her. And she's just like, I'll just come in on your dish soap and then maybe over here in your laundry. Like, and we don't really think about it like, oh yeah, everything's got lavender scent. And of course, a lot of times it's fake lavender scent. So that doesn't really do us any good at all. But sometimes it really is her natural essence. And when I dieted her, I was just like cracked up over this of like, yeah, lady, you found your way into every nook and cranny of our culture because we need her. Not because she smells nice, she does, but it's the vibration that she carries underneath that she's here to try to help us come back to this state. So lavender is amazing because she's ubiquitous, she's everywhere, she's very identifiable. She has that scent that most of us are like, that's lavender. So it's beautiful that she's found her way in such a universal way because we need her. However, as I was just saying a moment ago, if we work with her more consciously, intentionally, sit down and say, lavender, oh my God, I'm in this very heightened, overstimulated space. Can you help me? Then, of course, her powers to do so exponentially rise than just sneaking in via our laundry. So lavender is about presence and about just beautiful space of consciousness around interior and exterior energies. Passionflower is another absolute favorite of mine. Passionflower is really effective for people that have intense issues with anxiety, PTSD, even ADHD. She can calm that very sort of racing energy. In fact, when I've worked with Passionflower, she said an expression to me once that she can help us get out of the prison of our minds. Yes, please. So she is really strong and magical for actually physically helping to give that sense of a calmer nervous system. So she's really amazing for people who have gone through a lot of trauma too. And if you know what her flower looks like, this huge, bright purple blast of light with the yellow in the center, she's really very anchored into the energy of lightness. So where lavender can bring more of a grounded sense of presence, passionflower can bring this uplifting sense of everything's okay. Everything's okay. I can do this, so she can help, Passionflower can help peel back the layers of fear and anxiety and get us more connected to our space of courage and trust of like everything is totally as it should be. Chamomile is another really, really potent nervine. Chamomile, we know, most of us, because it's very commonly a tea that is offered. There's a small selection of teas. Chamomile is normally in that. It's a universal tea because chamomile is like the perfect plant to work with at the end of a stressful day. Chamomile is also really, really good for trauma. Chamomile has a spirit that is very childlike. So it's also really good for children who have dealt with abuse or trauma, because chamomile is a very safe feeling plant. And it's interesting, when I connect with the spirit of chamomile, it feels very gender neutral. I can feel both masculine and feminine elements because there's just this, with chamomile, such a space of safety, of like, there's no energy of judgment. There's no energy of anything other than you're perfect as you are. And it's like chamomile tea is like a warm hug, and a really perfect partner if our lives are busy and intense and we need a chance to kind of reset and calm down at the end of the day. Chamomile is interesting to me though, because it's not really a pleasant scent. I have my chamomile essential oil, and when I take a deep breath, it's the first sort of whiff is like, oh, it's not like lavender where you just kind of want to melt and like, oh, this is heaven. But what's most important is not, is it pleasing, but how does it make you feel? And chamomile as a essence, when you allow in that energy, just incredibly soothing. So another amazing, relaxing nervine. If any of you are like, I was when I used to drink alcohol a lot, maybe you liked a good beer at the end of the day to calm the nervous system. So it's not really the alcohol that is beneficial in beer for creating a sense of peace, it's hops. So hops, if you want to drink hops water instead of beer, it's awesome. Hops is a nervine that's actually a relative of cannabis, and I'm going to talk about cannabis in a little bit, but hops actually physically resets the nervous system too. It's an incredible nervous system regulator. Just doesn't work in conjunction with alcohol because alcohol is a depressant. And so alcohol sort of circumvents the ability for hops to come in on a physical level and relax us, because alcohol represses the energy, the trauma essentially that was in there. It's a depressant, right? So hops is trying to very gently dissolve and release the trauma that we're holding, and alcohol is holding it in. So it just recycles it. So if you have a beer and you feel relaxed, there's no actual release of the energy. It just comes back in sheer awareness when you're no longer in the buzzy state of the alcohol. You work with hops as a tea or hops water, which I love that is becoming more popular now. Hops can actually step by step just help slowly dissolve and release that trapped energy of trauma in the nervous system. So it's an incredible ally. Hops to me is very masculine, softly masculine. And hops is also a sleep aid. However, I want to add that a lot of these plants get lumped together in the space of like, oh, they're sleeping aids. I don't think any of them really are sleeping aids in the way that we associate with pharmaceuticals that we can pop and then, knock out and sleep, because plants all necessitate the process of healing, where pharmaceuticals shut down the healing but make us numb to it. Plants bring these energies to the surface and have us remain accountable for processing and working with them. But hops in particular is incredible about doing this one little niche at a time, one little molecule of trauma. So it's not like, ayahuasca could just bring it all up of like, let's deal with all of your childhood trauma in one night. It's like, oh my God, hops will take one little piece at a time. So it feels very safe, and yet it's healing. It's just a slower process than a night with mama, but it's really good for people who have gone through intense trauma because it feels really safe to go one little step at a time. So hops is really special and an intentional partnership for moving through trauma. Skull cap, always in. If you ever have a blend of plants that help for sleep, skull cap is always in there. Skull cap is a restorative nervous system plant, meaning that it helps restore a nervous system that's been in the process of healing. So I recommend skull cap for people who have already gone through a lot of journeys with plants like chamomile and hops, when they're ready to feel like it's time to revitalize and bring the nervous system back online. So skull cap isn't the best plant when you first recognize, like, wow, I'm completely out of whack. Skull cap is the plant that's going to come in with some life force to help you start feeling more embodied and empowered in a regulated nervous system. So it's not necessarily the partner that helps regulate it, it's the partner that helps just amplify the space of healing that you've been cultivating. Jenny, good question. You're asking where to get a good source of hops. Well, here in the States, I've probably told you this before, one of my favorite apothecaries is Mountain Rose Herbs. And I know that they often have either organically cultivated or wildcrafted hops. So that's a good source. If I think of any others, I'll let you know. But Mountain Rose is like my go-to for most of these because they have ethical standards and they have a massive catalog of offerings. So try that one. So I've been kind of hard on Mama Aya today, talking about her intensity, but ayahuasca as the vine minus crazy chacruda, or whatever DMT containing plant that we mix with her. So ayahuasca is actually a nervous system regulator by herself because she has something called harmines or harmalines. So if you've ever had an experience in ayahuasca where you feel that heavy space of being tired, and like sometimes I feel like I'm swimming through tar, that's actually ayahuasca herself that creates this whole part of it is helping us feel really connected to our bodies. It can feel heavy sometimes, the intensity of those harmalines, but she can actually regulate our nervous systems by herself. It's really her partner in crime, Shakruna, that creates the intensity of the altered space. So people, I only recommend working with ayahuasca as a partner if you already have a relationship with her, because she's a super powerful entheogen. So if you bring her in without first having some awareness of creating spiritual protection, she's dicey. She's complicated in that way. But if you sat in ceremony or you have a deep relationship with her, she's a beautiful nighttime tea, or you can smoke her. And there's even a little bit of effects that are similar to cannabis, just in the way that she can just like, relax us with a big old smile. And it's like this whole skeletal sort of feeling of relaxing. To me, she relaxes me down to my very bones when I work with her solo without Shakruna. So shout out to Mama that she has the capacity really to go either way, deep into a space of body connected peace, or far out into the cosmos on a journey. But because she's unpredictable, she's not the one I typically name for people to work with that are at least in the opening stages of attempting to regulate their nervous systems. But she can absolutely go there with us. Lemon balm, or Melissa, also known as Melissa. Lemon balm is another amazing one. The lemon balm superpower is for the mind. Lemon balm is awesome for people like me that had a bipolar diagnosis. So anybody that deals with the racing mind, which of course is like the crown to the nervous system. So lemon balm goes right to the source of quieting thoughts, of like, it's almost like when I drink lemon balm, it's like my mind is getting a massage. That's the best way I can describe it. Of like, yeah, just like working out the kinks and feeling some some space of relieving the burden of having to be in control. So lemon balm's awesome if your mind is overactive, let's say. Awesome, Kamisha, working with her in late August, right on Aya, I assume. Let's see, lemon balm. And lemon balm also tastes amazing, which is always an extra bonus, but she's super beautiful for mind medicine. Another complicated, but very, very potent one is blue lotus. Her real name is blue water lily. There is a blue lotus plant that's incredible, but the plant that has psychotropic and deeply sedative medicine is actually a water lily. Just somewhere along the way, blue lotus and blue water lily got combined together and are called the same thing. So if you're resonating with what I'm about to share about water lily, you're probably going to have to Google blue lotus in order to find her. But in any event, blue water lily, she's another complicated one because in small doses, water lily is a profound sedative, very, very effective for relaxing our nervous system. She's also a dreaming aid. So working with her before going to sleep not only helps to go into deeper REM sleep, but ignites and amplifies the dream space, which may or may not be a good thing, just given on what you're working out in the dream space. Because I know, having dieted her 3 times, man, my dream space is very, very alive. And yet at the same time, when I work with her, I get really deep sleep typically because her sedative effects are amazing. Now, the complexity with blue water lily is that in larger amounts, she's very highly psychotropic. So it's very much like ayahuasca, that you work with her in a small, sort of gentle way. It can be really relaxing and really helpful for this calming space. In larger amounts, it's the opposite. It's a wild, beautiful ride through the cosmos. So just be aware that water lily, she plays both sides in that regard. Water lily for me is most effective as a sedative, as a nervous system regulator via sacred smoke, smoking her rather than drinking her. I think just because of the way that the medicine is integrated into the body through the smoke, it's much more gentle. Obviously, if you consume her, you're going to digest her. It's going to permeate all the parts of your body. Whereas like smoke is more centralized and is, for me anyway, a gentler way to work with her. So when I want that sedative dream effect with lily, I'm most likely to smoke her rather than have a cup of tea. But that's just my personal preference. Kava is a very well-known nervine. Kava is superpower with kava is for people who have a default space of frustration, not anger so much, because anger is a more fiery expression of that, but this edginess of frustration, where there's this easy state of feeling like circumstances derail you. And so people that are really sensitive to just getting edgy and frustrated easily by the events of the day, kava is an awesome partner in just like calming down, negative emotional effects around little things that happen in our everyday lives. That's kava's superpower. Rose is a little known nervine. A lot of people don't know that rose has nervine effects. Rose's superpower in this space is the heart-connected consciousness around what the nervous system is carrying. So I did a master plant diet with Rose earlier this year. And, it was another incredible experience of Rose showing me through the wisdom of my heart, the degree to which I was still carrying trauma in my nervous system. So she helped to calm it, but she has this incredible connection to the heart, which essentially gives us more information, but from a deeply intuitive, deeply felt space. And, the heart is connected to the nervous system because this is where we carry our broken hearts, the experience of grief. Like, the heart isn't just the place where we experience love, it's where we experience loss. And so working with Rose gets to the heart of the matter, literally. She brings us into a deeper awareness of, oh, you know what? I'm dysregulated because something happened when I was 11. And that broke my heart, and I'm still processing that. So she's an expander of consciousness, but really from that intuitive, heartfelt space. And so she can be an incredible partner and helping us, but she's not really the one you want to drink at the end of a stressful day, because she doesn't have that superpower. She's the one that you want to go to when you're like, all right, what's this all about? Help me get to the heart of the matter. Help me understand why this dysregulation exists to begin with. Mint is also an awesome nervous system friend, but mint, like lemon balm, works also on the level of the mind. But mint brings clarity, clears out the cobwebs, which in a way is really calming, because a lot of times the state of confusion is the thing that creates distress in us. I don't know anybody who genuinely likes to be confused. I don't know what's going on. Even though the most of us on the spiritual path, the longer we do this, the more we're like, I have no idea what's going on ever in anything. And we can celebrate that. But at least initially, when we're more mind connected, the mind does not like to not know. And so mint can create the sense of clarity, which itself can be very calming. And it has nervous system, nervine properties as well. Not to mention, mint in particular works with digestion. Another of mint's superpowers is helping to calm and soothe the belly. And we all know that the mind-belly connection is a very real partnership in our bodies. If our bellies are out of balance, gut biome, etc., the mind will follow. A lot of times things like anxiety, depression, etc., aren't an issue of the mind, issue of the gut. And so mint can help with digestion and with balancing the gut biome in order to help the mind to also come to a space of more calmness. Cannabis, I got to talk a little about her, because like cannabis being an entheogen is like ayahuasca and blue water lily, who are also entheogens, in that it can go either way. Because really, cannabis, ayahuasca, lily, wachuma, plants like that, they are master teachers. And so their mission is not one-sided. It's very complicated, which is why they are amazing and difficult to work with. So cannabis, because cannabis works from the energy of the shadow. And we know this because she takes away our pain and she does things that most plants don't. She is a very tricky communicator. So really with cannabis, she can absolutely calm and soothe our agitated nervous systems. But the key with cannabis is that you can't just rely on her like you would a pharmaceutical drug to consistently give you the results of helping you sleep or calming you. We can do that occasionally. We can go to cannabis on occasion and just be like, Mama Ganja, I am freaking exhausted. It's been really hard. Can you just hold me and help me sleep? Yeah, she'll do that. But you do that every single night, and eventually she will hold you accountable for the lack of curiosity around the why and the lack of willingness to heal or to maybe change the way you walk in the world. Maybe you're in an abusive relationship that is creating that energy of dysregulation. So Lady Ganja will hold you and comfort you until it's time to say, you know what, love, I'm sick of being your Band-Aid. We got to address the elephant in the room, which is the fact that you are saying yes to an abusive situation, as an example. So cannabis works until she doesn't. And she's an amplifier. So she can, in the course of, let's say a 24-hour, like one night you go to her and say, help me sleep, and she works like a charm. And the next night, she instead amplifies the anxiety, kicks up nervous system. This is why people can go through paranoia and all of these things with her, because she's holding us accountable. She's so patient until she's like, it's time for you to get the message. So she's tricky in that it may not always turn out the way we want when we go to her for nervous system regulation, because she's really more at the end of the day about integrity and accountability. Yes, she helps us, heal and soothe, but eventually she's going to want us to get the message of how it is that we need to make lifestyle changes in order to get what we want from her. So she works until she doesn't. She's very, very tricky. And lastly, I saved my very favorite one for the last mention, because this plant is the first plant outside of ayahuasca that I ever felt the consciousness of. And she helped me through the death of my father, and that is valerian. So valerian, like skullcap, passionflower, is often incorporated in any sleep blend for plants. But valerian has the physical capacity to relax us on the muscular and skeleton level. Like she too goes as deep as the bones and it's just like everything's okay. So I work with her a lot, 3-4 times a week, because I still have a very amped up nervous system. The life I live sort of supports that. And valerian is my personal best friend in the nervine world. She also, she smells like sweaty socks. She just does. She's not a pleasant smell. I've got her essential oil right here, and it's not one I just slather in and go, yummy, like lavender. But it turns out, as I've found out in relationship with her, that cats love the smell of valerian. And of course, I named myself Cat, so I'm part feline. She's also known as the cat's herb because she has a very feline energy. So she has that additional sort of fun personality that I deeply resonate with. But valerian is consistent, whereas cannabis isn't. I have never gone to valerian asking for help and she did anything other than calm me. Now there's a range at which sometimes it's a deep space of calm, sometimes it's subtle, but she will never act like a stimulant or an amplifier the way that cannabis and lotus and Aya, all of them can. So she's consistent in that. But with all the nervines that I just listed, not everybody responds to everyone, right? We're all different in terms of the relationships that we have with this plant. So I know that people I've recommended valerian to haven't had success with her. Like, yeah, I'm not feeling anything. Cool. That's why there's a long list. And what I just offered is just a small number of the nervines that exist in nature. But that's why we got to find the relationships that work for us, is because we're each individual in that way. Let's see, Body's saying your cats will dig up the valerian seeds in the garden. Yeah, because cats love the smell of it. And my cat, when I opened my valerian diet, I did so at a solo sit at my home with Aya. It's the one and only time my cat has drank the tea that I've had in my altar. Like he just went and he loved the smell of it. And so, yeah, it's the cat's herb. And I'm sure that cats have their own instinct around knowing that that's medicine for calming too. One more thing I wanted to mention about valerian in particular that's interesting is whenever the medicine of the plant is highly concentrated in the root, which it is with valerian. There's a little bit of medicine in valerian's flowers and leaves, but almost all of it is in the root. Whenever we work with a plant, which primarily is the root medicine, it's embodied. It's deep earth connected energy, right? Because the roots never see the light of day. They never expand beyond the energy of the soil. And so they're incredibly earthy and body connected, which is really part of feeling calm and safe. So I think that's part of why valerian has such a superpower in that space of literally within a minute or two, consuming a valerian tincture for me, I can feel her working. And it's because that root energy is just so incredibly earth connected. So I find that interesting. It's like working with primary root focused energy really helps us to also be more conscious of the connection to our bodies. Karen, you're asking, is Bobinsana a nervine? So not technically, at least not, she hasn't been studied as much being a jungle plant. But as far as I know, in her alkaloidal structure, there's nothing that classifies as a nervine. But Bobinsana is heart medicine, the way that rose is. So I would put her in the same category as rose, in that she's pure water energy. She only works really with that element. And she really is very soft and soothing and comforting. But because, again, she is a master plant, she can also expose the shadow that we carry around being attached, as an example, to not being calm. Attached to things that create the opposite of a regulated nervous system, but because she's a teacher and like showing like, how does that feel? You should stop doing that. So yes, she, as a spirit, she certainly feels aligned with plants like rose and lavender, and that she's just a champion for self-love and sweetness. But she can expose the parts of us that aren't. But typically that happens in the context of a diet anyway, when we really merge with the plant. When I work with her, like for example, Bobinsana is the plant that I reach for in ceremony if I can't feel my heart. Sometimes I go too far into my head. There's been more than once I've been fumbling around in my kitchen trying to figure out how to make my tea kettle work in the middle of an ayahuasca experience because I'm trying to get Bobinsana. I need Bobinsana. I need to feel my heart. So she's amazing that way. But technically, I don't think she'd be classified as a nervine, but that doesn't mean she can't help. Sonia, oh, what about the linden flower and the green parts of oats? Okay, so linden flower, I don't know very deeply on a spiritual or medicinal level. So I can't really speak to the properties of linden. I know it's big in Germany though. But oats, yeah, oats should have made my list actually, because milky oats are in herbalism one of the core remedies that we give to people with ADHD, anxiety, etc. Oat tops in particular. You can even see in how oat grows, the oat tops are just kind of swaying with the wind. They're just like, just riding the wave. There's no rigidity and tension. So milky oat tops are a beautiful remedy for helping with the nervous system too. That should have been on my list. Thank you. In addition to consuming teas, basically I've mentioned 2 ways, I think, so far of working with the nervine. My favorite way across the board in a general sense to work with any plant is via a tea, because that way, you're working with either fresh or dried plant material that has probably been minimally processed. Ideally, when we purchase dried plants, it's lovely to know that it was dried by the sun and not a heat lamp or in some sort of commercial way, because that just ensures that the spirit of the plant is more intact. We can't always know that, but that's ideal. So tea is the purest way to work with a plant. But if you or somebody that you love is dealing with a really intensely severe case of anxiety, etc., it's wise to consider a tincture, which is a concentrated extraction of the plant medicine. Tinctures are typically extracted with alcohol, but then we can burn off the alcohol and replace it with something like glycerin if you don't want to consume the alcohol, which is great. So tinctures, they're a little bit tricky because unless you know who made them, you can't be sure that they were made with love, that they were made by people who maintained a heart connection to the plant as they processed him, her, or they. And so tinctures for me run the whole spectrum. There are places where I get tinctures and I make them myself, where it's like, wow, yeah, this is strong and potent. And there are tinctures that feel dead, that feel that they were manufactured in bulk and that the spirit just isn't there. So anytime we purchase a plant product that is in any way processed, we want to try to do our best to buy from people who are, small operations doing it with love, not the stuff we get at Whole Foods or Amazon, because that's typically mass marketed, and you want the spirit of the plant intact. Another way, so if you don't know the whole process of making your own tinctures, another way to make a concentrated form of the plant that you're going to consume is to make a decoction, which is essentially just taking the plant material and cooking it on a low heat for a much longer period. So, a cup of tea, we might steep for 10 or 15 minutes. A decoction, you can cook on low for hours if you want, which just extracts more of the medicine and the essence of the plant out of it. So sometimes I'm like a decoction of the plant that I'm working with, a big pot of it. I'll put it in the fridge and just do shots of it here and there, which is just a more concentrated way to work with the plant. And then I mentioned you can smoke. Pretty sure you can smoke every single plant that I just named. And there are even, hape blends that have a nervine incorporated, or you can take your favorite hape and grind up into a powder your favorite nervine and add a little smidgen of something like passionflower. Like, beautiful, like to combine that, because working with hape in a way is a would I call him a nervine? That's an interesting thing. Yeah, I mean, essentially, because hape, we work with hape in conjunction with ceremonies because he calms us down, quiets the monkey mind, helps. The word I always use with hape is alignment. I feel very just centered and present, but grounded. So sacred smokes, either to actually inhale or just bathing ourselves in the sacred smoke. If you're not comfortable inhaling a nervine, you can still breathe it in and be in the essence of it, and have the spiritual connection to the plant without smoking and inhaling. Steam baths are epic with nervines. Just to take like a bowl of hot water and either put some of the plant material or some essential oil of the plant, take a towel, put it over, and just breathe it in. Let your sense of smell and your pores just absorb. It's a lovely thing to do before going to sleep with a nervine, just to soak in the essence. Or you can do a hot bath and put your nervine friend. I mean, again, lavender's in every, like bath salts and bubble bath, and just taking her essential oil and putting a drop or two in a warm bath before bed is incredibly relaxing. So there's lots of ways that we can connect with them. It's not just about consuming the tea or the tincture. We can get creative in how we just allow their essence to merge with ours. So basically, the best method is the method that works for you, that resonates. There's no, and when in doubt, talk to the plant, because the plant in relationship to us as individuals can give us more personal feedback around, maybe what it is that would be most beneficial for us. So at the end of the day, I mean, just remember this is always a relationship that we're cultivating with these beings. The last thing that you want to do is to treat them like supplements or pharmaceutical drugs. It's just like consuming them without intention, without awareness, without reverence, because A, that's not effective, and B, it's not respectful. It's just to remember that we're in a relationship with these beings. So when in doubt, ask them. Bonnie's saying, whenever you get passionflower, it is a passion vine and very stemmy. Is there one that is more flowery? No, actually, because at least my awareness of the medicine in passionflower is actually in the leaves and the stems. That's where the core medicine. I'm sure her flowers have some degree of it, but the concentration in herbalism, we go right to the stemmy. So you've got the right product. I know it's a little bit harder to work with than flower petals, but it's more concentrated with her medicine. Sonia, good question. Would I mix them, or some great combinations? Yes, but caveat to that, the only issue I have with blends of like buying, the relaxation blend, is that it's very hard to create an individual relationship with the plants when they're all mixed together. So my advice is to, if you move towards a blend, to first have a relationship. So if you're called to a blend that has passionflower, skullcap, and valerian, work with them separately. You can work with them, maybe one night decide 3 hours before bed, you're going to have a cup of valerian, a cup of skullcap, and a cup of passionflower. Just want to create an individual relationship with them. They love to be mixed. They get along well with each other. But when we mix them, we're more likely to just sort of be unconscious and disconnected from the relationship factor, because it's hard to know, who is who. It's like if all of us were talking at the same time and we were a blend. Hard to get a relationship with each person if you're not listening to each one individually. So, yes to a blend if you're really making the effort to cultivate the individual relationships with them. I just think again that's more effective and it's respectful. Any other questions? That was all my big spiel today. You can either put it in chat or if anybody wants to use your voices, you could unmute too. Are we good? Oh, one thing I didn't mention, it might be obvious, but I'm going to mention it anyway. Stimulants and nervines don't mix. They're literally the opposite end of the spectrum. So don't do what I have done many times, which is spend the day consuming stimulants like coca and coffee or whatever, and then spend the evening consuming nervines. Because again, that is not a process of healing. If we're turning to nervines every day to calm the energy of the stimulants that we've overconsumed, there's no aspect of healing there. We're literally just taking uppers and downers and uppers and downers. And then that's a great way to fry our nervous system too. There's never a process of like completing a loop of releasing energy. I think that's something a lot of us do. We drink coffee all day and then we're like, I'm fried. And then we drink, valerian at night or chamomile or whatnot. But that's just a rinse and repeat sort of cycle. And it's a long-term, just damaging process to our nervous systems because there's never a true reset. Karen, hi.
Hello. Thank you. That was beautiful as always. And, at this point, having just had a few beautiful dietas, I think you're talking specifically about, or maybe primarily, like building an intentional relationship in that container and then using that to kind of kick off, and I know I've had I've learned through you also about plant attunements and plant communication. And I know we can build intentional relationships outside of dieta if we haven't had the opportunity to dieta with a plant yet. But I wonder if maybe you want to speak a little bit to that piece too.
Yeah, great question and differentiation. Because you're right, really, what I was talking about today is, my language of dating a plant. So today I was basically talking about dating nervines, which is my way of describing creating that amazing intimate relationship, but without the strict protocol of being in a diet, which I call a marriage, where we're like all in. So obviously it's not required that we marry every plant we fall in love with. I would be a polygamist to the max if that was the case. So we can cultivate this relationship in a more casual way, even though we're calling it sacred, it's still more casual, by just saying, hey, maybe I'm going to consume lavender a few times a week for the next few months and really pay attention, really be with her when I do so. But yes, the all in marriage experience with a nervine is the dieta process. I usually advise people to date the plant a bit before they choose to go all in with a diet. If it's a plant that is accessible, all the plants we talked about today are usually readily available in herb stores and apothecaries to us. But the jungle plants may not be. So sometimes we get a calling to diet a jungle plant that we can't pick up, at Mountain Rose Herbs, but we want to work with. And so we might marry a plant we've never dated. That's okay too. But when there's an opportunity to work with the plants, just to see the resonance and also the permission to feel if the plant wants to marry us too, which is kind of an important piece. Oddly enough, Karen, and maybe this isn't odd to any of us, but dieting a nervine in particular is really challenging for the reasons why I named in the beginning is we're not typically used to the state of conscious that they carry. Lavender, I call her the silent assassin because people come into the diet with her like, yeah, I'm just going to be calm and cool. Like, this is amazing. And that physical assaulting energy I mentioned, she takes people down. And the other thing that the nervines do in the diet container that is different is remember that their vibration is all about peacefulness and that serenity. So they don't like anything in the shared container they have with us that creates chaos and conflict. So I have watched Lavender in particular, because she's commonly dieted, systematically destroy relationships and jobs in people that are dieting her because she's like, ew, that's really stressful. Let's get rid of that. And then the person's life gets like thrown into chaos because they weren't ready to leave the relationship or the job or whatever. And she just kind of like, don't like that, get rid of that. So it's a big thing to diet a nervine unless we really are committed to making the changes in our lives that match that space of serenity, because the plants are powerful enough to create some destruction. And the other thing that happens with lavender diets, at least in the beginning sometimes, is the thing of nothing's happening. Nothing's happening. I don't think there's, I don't feel connected to the plants. It's just like, I'm like, again, what do you feel? Just kind of calm and peaceful. Yeah, that's the plan. You know, we're so just disconnected from that space that dieting nervines, even though on paper it sounds like that would be amazing and fun, it is kind of an advanced process because it's just so unfamiliar to us. It can be so disruptive, and that they don't like sharing space in our containers with chaos and conflict. So does that address your question? Anything else you wanted to go into?
No, that's great. And then I remembered, so cacao would also be a nervine, right? Or
Yeah, so cacao was originally on my list, but I'm like, cacao goes both ways too. Cacao is really complicated because she's a stimulant and she's a nervine, you know. So, but she, through her stimulant properties, helps to create a healthy relationship with that, you know, feeling of vitality. Um, Usually when we consume something like coffee, we get, you know, the high and then the crash, and then it's like rinse and repeat. Like with cacao, she teaches us how to just lean into the stimulant sort of energy, but with there isn't the crash that she doesn't do the same thing. I think she just teaches us a healthy way to work with our life force and to be energized and enthusiastic. But she's also medicine for the nervous system. But I ended up taking her off the list because it was just like, yeah, but that's kind of an advanced practice too, because she's just she's more complicated in how she works with the flow of energy. But yes, I forgot to mention too that we have a group master plant diet at Plant Medicine People with Passionflower happening in the fall. So, you know, if you're called to exploring the world of nervine dietas, I'm doing lavender next month, but it's full. And then my colleague Neil will be holding a passionflower diet in the fall, which I've never dieted passionflower. So I'm really excited to get to know her in that capacity. So that's available if you'd like to marry a nervine plant. Any other questions? Well, we did it perfectly. End of the hour. So thank you everybody for being here, talking about plants with me. The next webinar we're doing is June 29th, and it's actually going to be about working with anger and grief and shame in particular as portals into healing. So let's talk about shame monsters in a couple of weeks. Thank you for being here. I wish you all a beautiful rest of your Sundays. Until next time, everybody. Bye-bye.